Thank you, very kind. So, in 2023, I accepted a job working in Ukraine. For those of you who do not pay attention to the news, Ukraine is a war zone. So there's active bombardment going on there, even to this day. And I was actually not completely new to Ukraine. The school that I was hired to work at was one that I had gone to as a student. So it was a very emotional experience coming back. I lived in the same neighborhood that I had lived in as a kid. I even lived in the same apartment building, went to the same places every day. It was very strange to see how my home had just completely changed because of the war. Okay, so I want to talk about adjustment in Ukraine. How did I adjust to this situation? The very first thing I had to do was I had to download an application on my phone. This is the application right here, Error Alert. It has an exclamation point on it. On your phone it says Error Alert, exclamation point. And it's worth that exclamation point because it does something very, very important. It tells you when you're about to get bombed. It's an early warning system. So I downloaded the app. I didn't have to teach right away. I was just sitting in my apartment, kind of waiting for the app to go off to tell me that something scary was going to happen. And the first day, nothing really happened. But the second day, it went off 5 times. 5 times. And you want to guess what happens those times that it went off? Nothing. Absolutely nothing happened. So I learned right there that when the error alert goes off, most of the time nothing happens. I was kind of starting to feel like I was going insane. The tension was building up. And I started to think, hold on a second. Is that Luke Skywalker from Star Wars? And as a matter of fact, the Error Alert app, this is true, the Error Alert app is voiced by Mark Hamill, the actor who played Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. So, I'm glad you guys find that as surprising as I did. So when you're about to get bombed, Luke Skywalker comes on your phone and he says, hey, guess what? I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Hey, guess what? You're about to get bombed. Maybe. And then when the threat is over, he says, hey, the threat is over. And this part is a verbatim quote. May the force be with you. I felt like I had walked into another dimension. There was some real adjusting I was going to have to do. Okay, so what about the scary stuff, right? 9 times out of 10, the error alert goes off, nothing happens. You just sit in your apartment, keep watching Netflix or whatever. But what about that 1 time out of 10? Okay, I want to introduce you to my arch nemesis, the Shaheed drone. That's this thing right here. It's really scary looking. I think they're kind of creepy. This is the main threat of aerial bombardment as a civilian in Ukraine, is these guys right here. I hate them. They sound like mopeds, by the way. Like they sound like motorcycles, which has been very interesting coming to Beijing because I still have like a little bit of a fear of that sound, and I hear it literally everywhere. So anyway, the way that they work, they're what's called a loitering munition. Loitering means like standing around and waiting. They fly, so what happens is they fly around in the sky, and they look for a target, and when they find it, they dive really quickly, and they crash into the target, and then they blow up. So yeah, those are the Shaheeds. The sound that the moped sound is actually not the scariest sound that they make. It's a pretty scary noise. You hear it, it's very like distinct in Ukraine. You know that there are Shaheeds in the area. They sort of circle around. The scariest noise that they make is absolute silence. Because when they go from looking to a target to diving, the engines shut off and they're completely silent. And there's about a second of silence before they land on the target and something explodes. And I don't think that I can really fully do justice to the feelings, the thoughts and feelings that run through your head in that 1 second, waiting to find out if you're the target or if something else is the target. Okay, also I have a fun fact about Shaheeds. It's not that fun. So some of them, not all of them, but some of them are guided by AI, right? They're not guided by people. A few of them are guided by AI. And I just found something about this so incredibly creepy. The idea that an AI would be the thing that decides what's getting blown up and what isn't getting blown up. I guess the AI isn't very good because while I was there, they blew up like a shawarma stand, like a place that sells like meat in my neighborhood. Not a military target or anything. Anyway, I just find that so creepy. But I did recognize as soon as somebody told me that there's a sort of there's something appropriate about the idea that me, a teacher, would essentially be murdered by ChatGPT. Sometimes I would really think, like, am I really gonna let an AI kill me? Okay, anyway. Shaheeds, believe it or not, are not the scariest thing in the skies above Ukraine. The scariest thing are what are called hypersonic missiles. This is a picture of what it looks like after a hypersonic missile lands. They destroy entire buildings. And what's especially scary about hypersonic missiles, in Kiev we have air defense. They take care of most of the Shaheeds. And unfortunately, the hypersonic missiles, they go way too fast. The air defense can't really deal with them. They're really, really fast. They get through, there's no defense. And my parents were really worried about these when I came to Ukraine. And what I would tell them, looking back, I think I was telling it to myself more than I was telling them, is look, the Russian Air Force, they don't really have that many of these fancy missiles. They've got maybe, what, like 50 of them? They're not gonna spend one of their hypersonic missiles blowing up my neighborhood, okay? I lived in a neighborhood called Svitoshin. Svitoshin looks like it's already been bombed. The Russians aren't gonna spend a fancy missile making it look like it's been bombed twice. So that's what I told myself, right? They pick their targets very carefully. But then when I was there, during my stay in Ukraine, they blew up a cultural heritage museum. Not exactly a military target. And then they blew up a children's hospital. This is a picture of the results, by the way. That was a children's hospital. My best friend's brother was there that day. Fortunately, he survived. But it was a pretty scary day for everyone. And then more personally for me, a hypersonic missile hit an apartment building in Svitoshin. A normal apartment building just a couple of blocks away from my home. And so that was when I realized that the story I had been telling myself about why I was safe was not true anymore, if it had ever been true to begin with. That's a bummer, huh? It's a bummer. You might be thinking, do you have any fun stories about being bombed? Do you have any funny stories about being bombed? Yes, I absolutely do. Without further ado, here it is. The funniest story about getting bombed. At school, no less. So, before I tell this story, I need to give a little bit of background about what it was like to teach in this environment. So when I'm at school, every once in a while, it would happen maybe every third day, my good friend Luke Skywalker would warn us we're all about to get bombed. And if we happened to be at school, what would happen is, whatever you're doing, whatever assignment you have, whatever you're doing in class, it stops immediately. Everybody gets up, they go down to the shelter in the basement. The shelter is not very large. It was maybe about as big as the Dream Theater here, right? So you can imagine 10 classes happening at the same time in the Dream Theater. It's chaos. You can't really get much done. No focusing. If you were taking a test, too bad. It's too loud to focus on the test. If you were giving a presentation, too bad. There's no projectors in the shelter. If you needed to use the textbooks, too bad. All of my students forgot their textbooks upstairs. Okay, so that's what you need to know for this story. Here's the story. So I teach biology. First thing in the morning. The kids hate it, I hate it, everybody's tired and miserable. They come in one day, and I stand up in front of them, and I say my two favorite words in the entire English language. I look at them and I say, pop quiz. And they're all miserable, they hate it, right? I love it, I love how upset they are. I'm like, okay, pull out your papers. They pull out their papers, write your name at the top. They write their name at the top. And I'm like, okay, question number 1. And I'm getting ready to tell them the first question. It's a really hard one. And then the alert goes off. Luke Skywalker says, guess what? You're about to get bombed. And my students look at me. And one of them says, Mr. Morgan, are we going to cancel the test? And I say, yes, the test is canceled. We'll do it tomorrow. And the kids are like, yes. so weird watching these kids be like almost cheering for the fact that we were in danger. Yeah, people can get used to pretty much anything. Okay, my next story is about leadership. So this is the school that I went to. So my kids, by this point, they're pretty much used to getting bombed, you know? Happens every week, whatever. The air alert goes off, we go to the shelter. Sometimes there's scary noises outside, sometimes there's not. Okay, and then one day something pretty unnerving happens. I'm teaching my class, and I get a message on Teams from the principal. And it says, hey, no need to freak anybody out, but when you get a moment, please everyone come down to the shelter. This is a message to all the teachers in the school. The air alert has not gone off, okay? So I tell the kids we're going down to the shelter, they're like, what's going on? The air alert hasn't gone off, what's going on? And I don't know either, I'm a little bit freaked out as well. So we get down there, I continue trying to teach my lesson on like DNA or whatever. And the kids actually, they figure out what's going on first. You know why they figured it out first? Because while I was teaching, some of them were like texting on their phones. So what's going on is that day there was a rumor going around that the Russian military had chosen that day to nuke Kiev. And I was in a very tough position as a teacher, because on the one hand I want to tell these kids, look, there's nothing to worry about. But I mean, if there's nothing to worry about, why are we taking shelter, right? So, my boss, the principal, she did something really clever. She told the teachers, listen, tell the students that I'm kind of overreacting here. Tell them that we need to take shelter, but it's a formality. There's no real risk here. And it worked. Within about 10 minutes of us saying that to the students, the energy went from one of fear to one of mild annoyance. Oh, look at the principal, she's overreacting. Can't believe she puts any credence in a rumor like this. It saved the whole day. And instead of being afraid, the students were able to focus on their past, even if they were a little bit annoyed. So it's pretty corny to say, but I would say that day I learned something important about leadership. Okay, those are my 3 stories about Ukraine, but I have to say something else before I go. A little bit of a disclaimer. I want to make it really clear, I would not forgive myself if I gave you guys the impression that I'm some kind of hero for going to Ukraine, right? Kiev was genuinely, and people think I'm being humble when I say this, but I'm not. Kiev was genuinely very, very safe compared to other parts of the country where people went through all sorts of terrible things, right? Where people didn't have air defense systems. And it's especially safe in comparison to the lives that people live fighting the Russian military and you know, defending us from Russian aggression. So I just want to say, I want to dedicate my speech essentially to the soldiers, the defenders of Ukraine, the real heroes in this story, who fought, and some of them died, and are still fighting and dying to keep my students safe. Slava Ukraini, thank you for listening.